Even though we're stuck inside, we're gonna make some art. Pandemic PA. Meow. Hi guys, welcome back to another edition of Pandemic PA. This week we are going to be talking about my favorite topic in the world. And I'm sure that most of you who know me can guess what this is. We're going to be doing it for 2 weeks. We're going to start with a craft project this week. And then after the break, in 2 weeks, we will be using that craft project in a lesson. No spoilers, but here is a little bit of a hint for you. So let's get started. This week for mindfulness, we're going to talk about something very, very simple, and it is exactly this. Quiet. The importance of just taking a moment to sit and be quiet. And I know you're saying, like, as a teacher, oh, like, you love it when we're quiet, blah, 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 blah. No, this has nothing to do with school. This has nothing to do with me as your teacher saying, like, be quiet in my class, rah, 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 rah. This is just about taking a moment in your life by yourself, for yourself, just for a little bit of silence, for a little bit of quiet. Now, I say quiet and not silence because ideally silence is good, but we all know that sometimes we're in a place where it's not silent, right? I know right now I'm recording this video and it's raining and I can hear rain and I can hear cars going by and all that sort of thing. But it is really nice to get to a point where you can just sit in as quiet as possible. I like to do this every single day. And I like to do this particularly like in the middle of the day. A lot of times, if you see me at school, you know I teach in the morning and I teach in the afternoon. I got a little bit of a window in between. And a lot of those times I like to take a couple minutes just to sit. Sometimes I actually go hide in the performing arts closet and just sit for like 2 or 3 minutes in just quiet. Sometimes I'll even set an alarm on my phone or a little timer on my phone. But this helps out a lot of ways, right? The first thing that just sitting in quiet helps you do is helps you kind of organize your thoughts. It helps you to think, okay, like where am I in my day? What's going on and how am I feeling? Right? Checking in with ourselves and checking in with our feelings is always very, very, very important. And I'm not saying you have to sit there and like run through the whole emotional gambit and be like, oh, I'm happy, I'm sad, I'm blah, blah, blah. Just to think, like, how am I feeling today? Am I feeling pretty healthy? Am I feeling a little bit off? It can be just like what, like, mental state am I feeling a little bit sad? And why? And might not even know, right? But it's always a good idea to take a couple minutes just to kind of check in with yourself. Just sit silently and think, how's my day going? What is it that in this moment I need or I need to do to have a rest of the successful day? And how can I kind of just tune out everything else, all the other noise that's happening around? There's so much noise happening in our lives, just coming from here and there and there and there, and teachers and parents and all blah 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 blah. How can I just take a moment, just kind of shut all that out and think, okay, here I am. How am I feeling? And what do I need to do to be my best self? I know if I don't do this at least once a day in the middle of the day, I get very, very, very cranky. I start to feel off. I start to feel weird. And then that, like, if that gets into my teaching and that gets into, like, how I interact with you guys. And it's just not a good situation. So I like to just take a minute, stop, sit quiet, close my eyes, and just breathe like we talked about. and kind of check in with myself. I like to do this at the end of the day too. Maybe sit like outside, right outside my front door. Kind of take in the world, take in the quiet around me. And this is really important, especially in times when we feel really anxious and we feel kind of almost powerless. And I don't know about you guys, but there are times in all of this where I'm kind of feeling that. I'm feeling a little anxious. I'm feeling a little bit powerless because there's not much that we can control. But we can always control just a couple minutes here to just check in with ourselves, ground ourselves, and figure out what it is that we need to have a successful rest of your day. So I challenge you sometime today to just take a moment and sit in silence. Doesn't have to be long, just a minute or two, 30 seconds. Just find a space where you're alone. Sit down, make yourself comfortable, sit on the couch, on the floor, wherever. Just close your eyes and think, how am I feeling? What's going on in my life? And what do I need to do to have a successful rest of your day? And once you do that, take a minute or two, then get back up, jump right back into what you're doing. But we oftentimes forget how important it is just to take that moment to sit in silence and check in with yourselves. So give it a try. Today, we are going to be talking about my all-time favorite subject in the performing arts, which I'm sure all of you are well aware of, and that is puppets and puppetry. You knew it was coming, guys, and here we are. Today, we are going to be doing a visual art project. We are going to be building a sock puppet. Now, my hope is that we are going to be using things and materials that you can find around your house, so you don't need to go out and buy anything, or maybe if you just need to get some glue or something super quick. But my hope is that anything that we do, you can do with stuff around your house. And to that end, just because you don't have exactly what I have does not mean you should not try this. Anything works. I'm going to try as we go to talk about different alternate materials you can use. But honestly, anything around your house can be a puppet. A very famous story that Kermit the Frog, the original Kermit the Frog, who we all know, created by Jim Henson, started off as one of his mother's coats. She had a green coat. He cut it up, made a little sock puppet of it, and that was Kermit the Frog. Now, I am not recommending cutting one of your mother's coats. Do not do that. Parents, you heard it first here. I am not endorsing cutting up coats. However, if there's anything around the house that you can use, feel free to use it, provided you ask permission first. I know some of you. Ask. Okay, so let's get into it with our materials. Okay. For this project, we're going to need a couple things. We're making a sock puppet, so we're obviously going to need some socks. Okay? These are some extra fuzzy socks I happen to have lying around. If you only have one sock, that's great. You could use that for just a body and the head of the sock puppet. But if you have its matching sock, even better, because I'm going to show you how you can make some little arms for your sock puppet out of the matching socks. So one pair of socks is great, or even if they don't match. But 2 socks, ideally for this project, 1 will work. Okay. The next thing that we are going to need, of course, is something to cut the socks. So some scissors. Okay. Anything will work, but I like scissors the best. And, of course, some sort of glue. I'm going to be using a hot glue gun, which if you use, please get permission from parents and be extremely careful and safe with. It gets very, very hot. Do not ever touch the end of this. It gets very hot. I'm touching it now. It's not plugged in. It's not hot. But don't do this when it's plugged in. Okay? So you can use a hot glue gun if you happen to have one in your house. If not, fear not, any sort of glue will work. One of my favorites is this right here. This is called Fabric Tack. It's just a craft glue. So this is like special craft glue for fabric. This is just, looks the same, but it's just general craft glue. Sometimes you see it's called tacky glue in brown bottles. Even Elmer's glue will work in a pinch. The other thing is if you use glue like this, make sure you let it dry. Hot glue guns I like to use because pretty much takes like 20 seconds and then it's dry. This stuff you're going to want to let it sit and let it dry. So if you use anything like Elmer's glue or any other sort of glue, but you're definitely going to need some glue. Okay. You're also going to need paper. Okay. Normal paper, construction paper, whatever sort of paper. Something to write on the paper with. We're going to be writing on these. We'll be making stuff out of these papers. Okay. So paper is very important. You're going to need something for what we call the mouth plate. Okay, the mouth plate is inside the mouth of the puppet. And we want this to be a little bit sturdier than just general paper. If you have general paper, it'll work in a pinch, but ideally you want something a little bit more sturdy, maybe like a cardboard, or what's called foam core. I thought I had some here, I don't. Which is like the poster board, cardstock, which is a little bit thicker paper, works. Construction paper. I'm actually going to be using today the lid of a whipped cream container. Whipped cream cheese container. So I'll show you how to use this. So like I said, right, like go through your trash, find something in your trash, right? This was in my recycling, so I'm going to be using this for the mouth plate. You also want something for the eyes. Now, these can be anything round. I myself today am going to be using some ping pong balls that I happen to have lying around. You can use any round object, marbles, anything that you find hanging around. In a pinch, you can also use paper, and I'll show you how to use paper as well in a pinch. But you're going to need something for eyes. And then the last thing that you're going to need, which is my favorite, is what I call frou-frou. Frou-frou is a technical term created by my puppeteer professor, a wonderful woman by the name of Joanne Segrist. And Professor Segrist refers to frou-frou as basically any extra stuff that you can put onto a puppet. So things like pom-pom balls. I got a whole bunch of pom-pom balls here. Maybe we'll use those. Who knows? Googly eyes. I got some googly eyes. You might have some googly eyes lying around if you want to use some googly eyes. Yeah, that might work too. String, some yarn, right? Yarn is great frou-frou. You can put it on for hair or something. I will not be using the string. Those of you who have been to Camp Uncommon know the significance of a blue string with yellow ties around it. So this is actually very, very important to me. So I will not be using this particular string. But you could use string, yarn, whatever you have around. I love this stuff. It is called craft foam, right? It's that thin kind of foamy stuff. You can use that. I think I might be using, I have a little bit of scrap fur. I know this is like, you don't generally find this around the house. This is me because I build puppets, so I have some scrap fur hanging around. But frou-frou, anything that you can find that you could add onto a puppet. Feathered boas work really well. Anything like that. Okay. So go ahead, pause the video, gather some supplies, and come on back, and we'll put together a sock puppet. The first thing that we are going to do is we are going to create a mouth plate for our sock puppet. So the mouth plate is actually going to go on the inside, and that's what kind of keeps the mouth open. And it's going to be really, really important for giving our puppet some shape, like the head shape and the mouth. The entire shape of how the puppet looks, believe it or not, is going to be determined by the mouth plate. Okay, so we're going to take our one sock. This sock is going to be the body of our puppet. And the first thing we always want to do is we want to turn it inside out because we want to work on the inside first. Okay, once you have it inside out, you're going to want to lay it flat. Okay, you want the toe part to go on this side because you're going to want the heel in the back. Okay, so wherever the heel is, flip that over to this side, okay? So our mouth is going to go up here right at the toe, okay? So the first thing that I want to do is I want to actually make a pattern for the mouth. Okay, and I'm just going to do that with a piece of paper. I'm going to grab my piece of paper, and I'm going to grab my scissors, and I'm going to grab my Sharpie. Okay, and I'm going to put the paper on top of the sock and kind of trace out what I think the mouth is going to look like. Where should it be? So I'm actually going to rip my paper and make it a little bit smaller so that I can kind of keep it here. Okay, so it looks like I want it to come a little bit kind of down, kind of go nice to the side, down, nice. You know what, I don't like that, so I'm gonna go this way. Let's see, I want it about here. Yeah, here we go. This is feeling better. Okay, it's feeling better. Okay, one thing I always want to do is I want to make a line right about the center, because I like my mouth plates to be symmetrical, and the best way that we can do that is by making a line. So I really don't even really need this extra side, but I'm gonna try this. Okay, so I have my mouth plate drawn. See how it's kind of like just an oval shape, and it's gonna go right inside my mouth. Let's cut it out and see how it looks. This is kind of like a trial and error sort of situation. So I might put this on and I might say to myself, hey, I really like how this looks. Or I might put it on and I might say to myself, hey, you know self, I don't like the way this looks. I like it to be a little bit bigger. I like it to be a little bit wider. Okay, so let's see, I'm gonna put that there. And I'm gonna say, I think I like how long it is. It could be a little bit longer, but I definitely want it a little bit wider. So I'm actually gonna redo this and I'm gonna make it a little bit longer and a little bit wider. It's important to take a little bit of time to get this how you want it, because again, this is going to determine the entire shape of your puppet. Okay, so I like to spend a little bit of extra time to get this right, like kind of do it a couple times to get this right. Now, like I said, I like to have a symmetrical mouth plate, so I'm going to show you how I do that. Notice how I only drew half of the circle this time, because here's what I'm going to do. I am going to take my paper and I'm going to fold it in half at that mouth line. So now when I cut it out, I'm only cutting out half, but because the paper is folded, I'm going to get a full mouth plate. And now it's going to be perfectly symmetrical down this center line. So if I put this here, I like it. Now I think it's a little bit too wide. So I'm going to fold it back in half again. I'm not going to redraw. I'm just going to take off just a little bit because I think it's a little bit too wide. If I wanted a puppet with a really wide shaped head, I might keep that. Or if I wanted a puppet with a longer shaped head, I'd make it longer. Right now I kind of want somewhere in the middle. So I think this is actually perfect. Okay. Great. So once I do that, if I wanted to, I could even fold it into a quarter again and then make a completely symmetrical both side to side and up and down. But I don't need to do that. It actually looks pretty good right now. One thing I do want to do though is like how I have a line down the center, I also want to make a line across. Now again, this piece right here is not going to go into my actual puppet. It's just a pattern. And I'm going to use this pattern to actually make the mouth plate. I'm going to make that out of my whipped cream cheese. Whipped cream cheese. I keep saying whipped cream, but it's like whipped cream cheese. Whipped cream cheese container. I'm going to place this right down on the center of my whipped cream cheese container, and I am going to just trace it out. I like to make those centers and side lines because I want those on there as well. So I make that kind of down the center here. And I'm going to go like this. And then trace down around here. Boop, 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 boop. Okay. This is going to be inside the puppet, so if it doesn't look the best, that's fine. what I really need is I want the front and back, what we call the center line, because that's going to help me position the puppet. But what I really, really want is I want this midline going across. The center line, I don't really need to draw all the way down. I can. Let's do that. Let's do it just because. Why not, right? It'll make things a little bit easier. But I really, really want that sideline. Again, right, I just made a little mistake. It doesn't matter. It's going to go on the inside. It doesn't matter what this part looks like. Okay. So that is my mouth plate. Now, I'm going to take my handy-dandy scissors and cut my mouth plate out. I'll cut that off. Make it a little bit easier. Okay. Now, don't throw this pattern piece out yet. We're actually going to use it in a little bit, okay? So hold on to that, even though we're now cutting out the mouth plate. So I'm going to cut. Maybe I'll speed this up in post, who knows? Okay. Now, once I have it cut out, one thing that I actually want to do is I want to cut it in half along that horizontal line, okay? I actually want 2 pieces to my mouth plate. One's going to be the top jaw, one's going to be the bottom jaw. My 2 are exactly the same, so it doesn't really matter. If you want, say, a puppet with a long snout, like a nose, then maybe you'd make the top jaw a little bit bigger. It doesn't really matter. I'm going to keep them the same, okay? So I'm going to place them. Again, I'm going to line them up as if they were still attached with just a tiny, tiny little space in between, but I do want them cut in half, particularly because this is really, really thick. This is thick plastic. If I was using, say, cardstock, I might not cut it in half because that can fold and create a nice little fold, or sometimes I like to use my fun foam for my mouth plates, this stuff. Remember I told you this foam sheets. Then I might not cut them in half, but definitely with something as hard as this, or like maybe cardboard or something, I definitely want to cut it in half, okay? And now it's just a matter of gluing in. Again, I'm going to use hot glue, so I'm going to be very, very, very careful. And please make sure that you're careful regardless of what glue you want. When gluing things, guys, less is better, actually. I could glue this whole thing, like all the way down and this whole thing. I'm actually just going to glue a little bit around the edges, okay? That's actually going to be a lot more effective than too much glue. Too much glue gets messy, it gets everywhere, and it actually sometimes hurts the stickiness, okay? Push a little bit and then push that down. Again, I'm trying to be super, super careful. Okay, you may have heard tell me stories. Sometimes I'm not as careful as I should be when I work with hot glue, and I burn myself. And I've burned myself a lot with hot glue, okay? So I know it is not fun. Don't do it. Do not be like me. Be better than me, okay? So I'm going to then go again, glue around the outside. Hopefully I can get this in the shot. Oh, try to be safe, but get it over the table so you can see too. And then I'm going to take this and I'm going to place it right down here. Notice I'm leaving a little bit of a space. That's important, particularly if you're using something hard like this. Again, if you were using cardstock or fun foam or something, you'll need that. Okay, so this is my puppet on my mouth plate. Okay, I'm going to give this a couple seconds to dry, and I would definitely, if you're using hot glue, definitely give it a second to cool. Okay, you don't want to be messing with the hot glue with like really hot glue and hot hands. Okay, you don't want to get it over your hands because this stuff burns, I'm telling you. But I think that if I was giving this to you guys, I'd let it dry a little bit more, but I think it's pretty good for now. So now once I have it, I am going to go ahead and I'm going to turn my sock right-sided. And there we go. Notice my mouth plate's on the inside. And see how now the mouth is kind of shaped, the head is shaped. Now, when you're performing with a sock puppet, and believe it or not, like Kermit the Frog is the same way. There's actually, a lot of puppets have foam inside the head. And I've seen sock puppets. I've actually made some sock puppets where I put foam inside the head. But you don't need to. If you put your hand a little bit like this, you can get a nice, good head shape. Let me see if I can go so the camera can see it. even without foam on the inside. That's actually the way Kermit the Frog is. There is nothing inside the head of Kermit the Frog. It's entirely the puppeteer's hand, excuse me. So here we go. So we got our sock with our mouth plate in. And let's move on to the inside of the mouth now that it is turned right side in. So now I have my puppet mouth plate in, but now I want to make sure that I get the inside of the mouth. Okay, you don't have to do this step. This step is a little bit optional. I like to do it because I think it makes it look really, really nice and makes it look a little bit more professional. Remember how we saved this? This was our pattern for the inside of the mouth plate. Okay, notice I did not cut the pattern in half because I don't want to cut the pattern in half because I want the inside of the mouth to be one piece. Okay, now for the inside of the mouth, you can use all sorts of things. Construction paper, regular paper if you want to draw paper and draw. I'm going to be using a little bit of black felt. Okay, you can use a black fabric if you have it, or even again that fun foam. I've used this before. I like for the insides of mouth either black or red. I think those colors look really, really nice, but you can use whatever colors you want. So today I have a lot. I actually went a little crazy at the store several years ago and bought more black felt than I could ever use in my entire life. So I'm going to use up a little bit of it on this project right here. Okay, so I got my mouth plate, and just like I did with the plate, I'm going to trace. Now if you notice here, I'm using a silver Sharpie now because I'm drawing on black, and the black Sharpie just doesn't show up. So then I'm gonna go ahead, outline, just like I did before. I want to mark that center line. All right, so I'm gonna do that. I'm gonna draw the center line all the way down. Don't worry about getting stuff on it because it is going to go. We're going to flip it over, right? Whenever we draw on stuff, we always use the back side for when, that's a little dusty. Maybe I should have drawn on that side. That's okay. For when we put it on. Okay, and then super simple now. I'm going to cut it out. Again, you can use anything for the inside of this, or you don't even necessarily even need the inside of a plate, of the mouth plate. I just really, really like to have it. One of the things that I like to know, I like to do, and that I learned when I was in school building puppets, whenever you trace, I like to cut on the inside of the trace line, right? Because this is a big, thick marker, and that's a lot of extra space if you cut on the outside. But you know that the inside of the trace line was the actual size of the pattern that you were tracing. So I'm going to cut along the inside. Now, if you're not comfortable with that, or, I mean, it's not that big of a deal, right? We're just making sock puppets here. Perfect is the enemy of good, as they say. So just do it, man. You know, take your time, make it look good, but don't worry about it. Okay, so again, I'm going to just cut that out. That's nice and cut out right there. And now this is going to, now remember, I've already turned my sock right side in, okay? So this is the right side. So now this is going to go inside right here. It's going to kind of match up with the mouth plate on the opposite side. Notice I flipped it over. I'm going to match up. There's the line. Okay, good. And now when I'm going to glue this, right, again, I don't need a whole ton of glue. I'm not going to put glue all over here. I'm just going to do a little bit on the outside. And particularly when you're working with hot glue, it's best to do a little bit at a time and then go back and do underneath, okay? So I'm just going to do a little bit on this outside, a little bit, and then fold it over. Remember, don't touch it. Don't touch that glue. It's hot. Get it nice and lined up, and then just gently press down. Okay. And now that I have that little bit done, I'm going to go back and I'm going to add a little bit more to the sides here. Right? Again, I'm not going crazy. I'm not going over because then it's really bad actually with hot glue because then you get bubbles and it looks really, really bad. Okay, there we go, right there. And right around here. Right around here. Now, actually, if I was making this for me and for maybe for like a professional show that I was doing, which I have used sock puppets in professional shows. I mean, there is a time and a place for them, and hopefully this guy will look good enough that we can use him in a professional show. I would actually sew this in. I would do what's called a whip stitch, and I would like stitch it all the way around, and that would just like this line where the fabric would kind of like be hidden. Actually, I might even cut part of the sock out and then like re-stitch this in and all sorts of fancy stuff with a sewing machine and everything. But I'm not gonna do that right now. Right now, we're just easy. We're just gluing in. Again, right? Hot glue works, or Fabri-Tac, or any of this crafts do, the craft glue. So let's try that out. Again, make sure you wait for it to dry, especially if you're using hot glue so you don't burn yourself. And there we go. Oh, look, that looks nice. Look at that. Yeah. Right? It's just the black kind of makes it look like, it's like it's inside his mouth, so we can clearly see the outside and the inside. This is going to be a little bit weird because I'm filming kind of from the top, so it's kind of hard to see. But yeah, that's what that's going to look like. Okay, so now we're pretty much done with his mouth. One other thing that I might do is I might add a little tongue. Actually, let's go ahead. Let's do that. Let's real quickly add a little tongue. I'm just going to use this little this red, this foam stuff that I like. I like to make a little heart-shaped tongues. I think they're cute, and they make a nice little, so like draw a little heart shape there. Kind of like a heart without the, with not a really pointy bottom, but kind of like more of a rounded bottom. I'm gonna cut that out. Yeah, real quickly, cut around there. Move over, see what it looks like. Oh yeah, see, a little cute little tongue, and then put that actually I want to put that side down, and then there we go, right, and then just a little dab of hot glue. And then right there. Now he's got a cute little tongue. Meh. Cool. Great. So now that we've got our mouth plated, we've got our sock, he's good to go now at this point. It's just a matter of adding eyes and features, and I'll show you how to do that. Okay, now let's add some eyes. I'm going to be using ping pong balls. There are so many different things you can do with these ping pong balls. You can cut them in half, so you have like half and half, and then you can put fabric on them to create eyelids. I do that a lot with puppets. That makes a nice touch. I'm just going to go real basic today, okay? Because I just want to kind of show you basically how it's done, not take too much time. Here's where it gets tricky with the hot glue, though, because hot glue is hot. And these are pretty cheap ping pong balls. I know it's like kind of weird to say that there's like the cheap ping pong balls and then the nice ping pong balls. These are the very, very cheap ping pong balls. So they're going to melt. So we're going to try this. We'll see what happens with the hot glue. It may work, it may not work, but that's part of puppet building. I'll figure out what's going to work. So I just put a little dab. And I'm actually going to glue these two eyeballs together. You don't have to do this. Your eyebrows can be separate. I like the look of these two eyes stuck together for a sock puppet. Okay, and I'm just going to hold it there for actually a lot longer and let this dry and hold it a lot longer than I normally would. Just because the way that the ping pong works, it's going to want to melt. It's going to want to kind of push itself out. So I really want that glue to set, and even then it might not work. So maybe it'll come undone. Maybe it won't. We'll see what happens. Sometimes I like to put a toothpick in between them and kind of like skewer the ping pong balls onto the toothpick to make it work better, but hopefully this will work. Yep, that looks pretty good. Okay. Now, super important, and this is the biggest thing. Oh, let's get this out of the way so we don't burn ourselves. Here we go. Putting the eyeballs on the sock puppet. If you've done puppeteering with me in class, which a lot of you have, unfortunately, fifth graders, that was what we were going to start talking about next. So don't worry, I promise if we don't go back, we will talk puppets next year when you're in sixth grade as well. But one of the big things that we talk about when we perform, and we'll talk about it next week, is the importance of the eyes. The eyes are the most important feature on a puppet. I know I said that the mouth plate was really important to get the shape of the head. That's true. Building puppets, mouth plate, Super, super important. Performing with puppets, however, most important feature is going to be the eyes. So we want to make sure we get the eyes right. And there's a couple things that we do when we make sock puppets that's going to take our sock puppet from like a craft toy kind of cheap looking thing to something that we can actually use and perform with. Okay. First of all, I'm just going to put my sock puppet on, and I'm going to try to see where those eyes are going to go. Okay. I could put them, see if I put them up here, that creates kind of like this like little tiny like character, right? He's got his nose. I could put him back here. That gives me a little bit of a different kind of character. But I always want to see first where they want to go. Now, looking at my sock puppet right now, this is looking pretty good. I'm liking where they are. So the first thing that I'm going to do is I am going to mark that with a marker. So I'm just going to, I must just put my finger right there. Just going to hold that with my finger right there, and I'm going to put a little dot right there. Put these back on. See, I always want to check it with my hand in there just to be sure, right? Because it looks completely different with your hand in there and your hand not in there. Let's see, put that in there. Yeah, see, even then, like I think I actually wanted a little bit. Nope, that's good. So I'll do that, and then I think right there is where that's going to go. So I got a general idea. That's going to go right about there. Okay, so I was going to mark it. So I just marked with my Sharpie where I want them to go. Okay. Now, what makes the difference between a sock puppet you can actually perform with and a sock puppet that's just a simple craft, like, hey, look, I made a sock into something, is where the eyes are placed. The biggest mistake I've seen is people putting just either like these googly eyes, just gluing them flat right on top of the sock, like right there. Now, if this is my puppet, the sock, that looks good here, but if I turn it so that you see the puppet talking, you're not going to be able to see those eyes, okay? You actually want something that sticks up and comes out this way so you can see it. So it's up like this. That's why I'm using the ping pong balls, right? Because the ping pong balls are going to sit right on top. And when I look straight at the puppet, I'm going to be able to see those eyes, okay? We don't want them flat on the top of the head like this. This may look good because the camera's looking down at it right now, but see, when I go to actually perform, I don't see those eyes, okay? I want them going up. So if you do have googly eyes and you're just using that, then maybe attach them like this. Glue them so that it is up and down rather than flat. Another thing, if you don't have anything for eyes, you can actually do this with paper, right? What I would do is I would just cut a circle with a little tab on the end, and then stick that circle up like this, right? And put the tab up so that the eye comes up like this. Either way, you want those eyes sticking up. And this, I find that the ping pong ball is the best thing to make that happen. So I'm going to take my hand out of the sock because I do not want to use hot glue with a hand inside of a sock. That would be very, 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 very bad. And I'm just going to put a little dab of glue on each of the eyeballs at the bottom where I want them on. Ooh, I got some marker on the eyeball, so don't do that. And then I'm going to place them right on that puppet. Okay. Now, the best thing to know right here is that the best spot I like to think is like kind of towards the back of the top of that mouth plate. Make sure you do not go past that hinge line for the mouth. If you do that, then you got the eyeballs on the bottom of the puppet. That just looks weird, right? So like on the back of the head. Okay. Once you have it on, then you can kind of start to kind of like look like, oh, where do I need a little bit more glue just to kind of secure this? So almost like looking like I'm going to need a little bit more glue right there. So I'm just going to go ahead and put that on. Now, a lot of times what I will do is I'd actually take a razor blade or an X-Acto knife and actually cut off the bottom part of this eye so that it kind of sits a little bit more flat down, or like I said, cut them in half. But for now, I'm just going to kind of do it on the whole ping pong ball. And then again, I'm like, it looks like they're still a little bit wobbly, so I'm going to put another little bit more glue the back of those eyes. And then again, just press down to get them nice and good on there. I want those eyes really, really attached. There's nothing worse than perform with a puppet and the eyes go flying. Okay, so those look like they're on there pretty good now. Again, I am going to wait to, before I put my hand in there to check it, I'm going to let this dry, okay? Let it dry, let it dry. Always safe and sorry, make sure that it is completely cool. And then once it is completely cool, go ahead and put your hand in and there we go. Yeah, not bad. Looking pretty good. He's starting to come along. Cool, cool, cool. Here we go. Great. Next thing, pupils. Okay, for pupils, super simple, right? Black circles. You could use the felt, right? I could use the felt. I have some black electrical tape. This is actually really good because black electrical tape itself is pretty sticky, right? It just kind of like sticks right on. Something weird that works really well that I found in the past is they're like these little felt pads that go on the bottom of legs of like stools and furniture and chairs, so they don't scratch the floor. Those are pretty sticky and they stay on and they're pretty good. For me, right now, I think I was gonna go with something else, but I think I'm gonna try the black electrical tape. Just because it worked. Actually, no, I'm not gonna go with that. You know what? Let's see. I'm trying to decide right now. We'll go with the black electrical tape. So what I'm gonna do is I'm just gonna get my black electrical tape here. I'm gonna cut myself a little. You know what? I didn't say black electrical tape was a material that you needed at the beginning of this, but just like what I would do is, if you don't have this, is just draw on a circle in marker and then on paper, right? That's another great way to do it. I'm going to use this tape just to make it easier so I don't have to use any more hot glue. So I'm just going to cut myself a little bit of a circle. It's going to be a little tricky. See how this works. Let's see. Okay. Now it's a little rough there. Levesque, get that better. Now the size of the pupil is really important. That's going to give it a completely different look to the character. Okay, like a huge giant pupil makes it kind of look a little bit spaced out. A tiny pupil makes it kind of look like it's like concentrating on something. I'm actually not going to use the black electrical tape because I'm realizing that it's a little... My scissors aren't really good enough to get a good one. So I'm actually going to use my favorite method, and that is googly eyes. However, I don't like googly eyes sitting on the puppet like this. Why? Because the eyes move, the googly parts move, and you can't create eye focus. That's good for very, very specific characters. Like Cookie Monster has googly eyes, but if you notice, he's the only one on Sesame Street that has googly eyes. No one else does. Because if everyone had that, it would look really weird and silly. Okay? Actually, especially if you're starting learning puppeteering, you don't want googly eyes, because the most important thing that you're going to learn is about eye focus. So what I like to do is I actually like to cut open my googly eyes so that I take out the pupil from inside. See how I did that? And then I am just going to put them right on the puppet. Okay, now, the placement of these eye pupils is the most important thing you can do. Okay? You want the puppet looking and focusing on you. We call this puppet eye focus. Okay? If a puppet does not have good eye focus, it is very hard to perform, and you don't know who he's talking to. It just doesn't look good performing a puppet with bad eye focus. So you really want to take your time to find a nice spot. Sometimes I will put on and take off pupils 5 or 6 times before I get a really good eye focus that I like. And the nice thing about hot glue with like the plastic ping pong balls, it's pretty forgiving. It'll actually come off and you can kind of like readjust and replace. But I think that looks pretty good. So I just hot glued those on, and there we go. Hey guys. Now, at this point, I could be done with the puppet. I've got everything that I need, right? I got a mouth. He's got eyes. He's talking. Hello. But I'm going to add a little bit more to make it a little bit better and just a little, add a little bit more fun character. Okay. Now comes the fun part. So we got our puppet. He's got a mouth. He's got his eyes. Now we're gonna take that fruit, and we're gonna add some little extra features to it. So let's see what we got here. I got some pom-pom balls. Maybe we could add like a little nose, maybe like right that. Like that looks kind of nice. Maybe you can go with a red one, possibly. But actually, I don't think I'm gonna give him a nose. Kind of like the kind of just no nose look, where like the little snout is the nose. Do want to give him some hair though. So we could do all sorts of things for the hair. Could put like the yarn like this, give him a nice little poofy like hair, like I think instead though, I'm gonna go with a little bit of leftover fur. I got this really nice blue fur from another project I had done. I got a couple pieces hanging off here. So let's see what this looks like. What I do with my other scissors. These scissors aren't really the best for cutting this fur. Oh, here are the good ones. Okay. So let's see. And you know, there's not much I'm gonna do that's like particularly planned out or complicated. I'm just gonna try to throw it, see what fits. You can do something like that, like a nice little mohawk there. You could do like that, and like off the sides, like on either side, maybe like pigtails or something. Whatever I do want to kind of roll this up so that it's all kind of nice and poofy. Maybe something like that. Maybe put that like right there. Nice little poof on the top. I don't know. What else do I got over here? I'm going to use this. I think I'm going to need a bigger piece. So let's cut a little bit bigger piece here. What could I do with this big piece? Maybe fold this over and maybe bunch it up. So maybe if I put a little bunch like that, put that right there. Ooh, I kind of like that. I kind of like that. Just like, it's almost kind of like a slick back hair look. Oh no! See, this is the problem with these ping pong balls. My eyes kind of came out. I was messing around with them too much. Let's fix that. Well, let's go ahead and just start gluing. See what this looks like. Again, the thing that I love about doing this, and particularly with sock puppets, is there's really no right or wrong answer, right? You just kind of gotta do some stuff, put it together, see how it works. Right now, I'm just kind of gluing some hair into like little patches, and hopefully it'll look good. And if not, we'll do something else. It's all about trial and error, imagination, creativity, all those good stuff. Should I put in that? Yeah, maybe I'll put that right. Just glue that. Oh, I got a little bit of glue on the eyeball. That's not good. I can get that off later. Okay. Yeah, maybe if I just put that right there. What do we think? So he's got a nice little tuft. One of my favorite things to use for hair is feather boas, or what we call marabou or ostrich feather. All of those things. Feather boas is basically a combination of ostrich feather and what they call marabou, which is kind of like the feathery stuff, but it's more lighter. I like using all that kind of stuff. The key here is to just make something look nice. You can't really see the glue. Just trying to I'm constantly tucking and molding and doing all sorts of things to try to make it look good, but without obvious where the glue is. Now I might actually put a little bit of glue on the back of the eye so that can kind of get up. Ooh, and nice and kind of like close right up. So kind of like poofs out off at the top. Ooh, I think I really like that. Again, I could put pom-pom balls on the sides for ears. There are so many different things that I could do to make this pop, but I think I'm going to keep it simple. I don't think a nose. I think just a nice little tuft of hair and some plain eyeballs. Nothing too fancy. Sometimes just keeping it simple is the best. And I think I really like that. It's got this nice little poof in the back, some hair. It's got some eyes. Cool. So right now, the sock puppet is pretty much done. I mean, I got the eyes. I got some frou-frou on it. He's got his little mouth with his cute little tongue. I am going to do one last thing, though, to make it go from good to great as far as when we talk about making a sock puppet that you can perform with. And that is, I'm going to make some arms. And I'm actually going to use the other sock that was originally came with the other pair of sock for the arms. It's a pretty simple process, and I'll show you it right now. First thing I'm going to do is I'm actually going to cut this sock in half. Okay. I'm going to go right around the seam around the outside. So I should have two, basically what looks like two socks, but you can't actually put your feet inside because they're just pieces of fabric. So I'll show you what that looks like. Normally is where I would stitch. I would actually use, again, I'd actually use needle and thread and stitch this, but because I want to make this super quick and simple, I am going to glue it. Okay, so here we have my sock. Now, it's kind of hard to tell now, but this is the wrong side. What would have been the inside of the sock? You can tell because it's got this little weird thing in it. So the first thing that I want to do is this heel. I kind of want to get rid of it. Well, not rid of it, but I just want to tuck it in. So I'm actually going to fold it together, and I'm going to fold it down, right? So now, notice how now I got a nice straight line. I could do a couple things. I could actually just cut this off and glue, and I might even actually cut this little piece off for the heel if I was sewing it. But since I'm not, I'm actually just going to glue it. Okay, I'm going to make a little bit of a dab of glue here to glue it to the side, and then put a little dab glue and glue it down like that. Okay. Now, all I'm going to do is I'm going to roll, I'm going to roll this up, and I am going to glue it right down the line. Okay, so I got my, now, and I want to make sure that I keep this part rolled in so that kind of gets hidden, that rolled part gets hidden, but everything else I'm just going to glue right down the line. And I'm not going to do too much glue, right? Like I said before, a little bit of glue goes a long way. So I'm going to start right there to tuck that in and get that nice and rolled in. Oops. There we go. Okay. Just a little bit of glue right around that line. Just a tiny bit. And then nice and roll it right up and press it. Roll it, press it. Okay. Looks a little bit like this. And then we'll do the same thing. Remember, roll this, glue around this line. That's just a little bit, even that might be a little bit much. I'm getting a little crazy there. And then roll it and press it. Okay, so what I ended up with is this long little mini tube. Again, if I were actually making this, I would sew it. I would then turn it inside out. So it would look a lot like cleaner and nicer, but I don't need to do that now. I am going to clean it up a little bit by taking this end, and I'm going to tuck it inside. Okay, that's just going to allow me to glue so that the hand part is just a little bit nicer. It's not quite just the outside. So I got a little bit of ball thing on the hand. The also nice thing about this technique is that point where the heel was in, where I folded it in, that kind of makes a nice little natural elbow. So I got my little hand here that I tucked in, got my natural elbow, and then I'm just going to take it, set it off to the side, and I'm going to do another one. So I got 2 arms here. Now it's just a matter of attaching them to my puppet. I like to. Ooh, let's wait for this camera to refocus. There we go. You don't want to make them too high. I like them, say, like down here. You can safety pin them on. You can do all sorts of things, put them on. I am just going to hot glue them on. So again, I'm going to tuck that end in just to make it a little bit nicer here and glue that before I put it on. And then I'm thinking right about there works. So I'm just going to get a little bit of hot glue, put it on right there, and go ahead and put that bad boy right on right there. There we go. Nice. Okay. And the nice thing about using fuzzy socks like this is it kind of hides a little bit of the glue. It hides the kind of the seam thing. Great. So I'm going to tuck this in again. A bit of glue. Now, if I was making this, I would like really, really detailed and professional. I would maybe measure this out. I'd maybe like put my marks. I'd make sure where the seams ran. But again, I'm just doing this for a quick, fun, goofy little project. So there we go. I do want to kind of make sure that I match up the arms. Otherwise, it looks a little weird. One arm a little bit lower than the other. That looks about right. Go ahead. Again, please, please, please be careful with that hot glue. Okay. There we go. And I think, let's see, try to get this a little. There we go. And there he is. Here is our sock puppet. Okay. Complete with some nice eyes, some nice eye focus, and some really long noodly arms. Now these arms are really long. I actually might go back and trim them, maybe cut them in half or a little bit, but I kind of like long and noodly arms. Kind of adds a nice, interesting character. So again, I'm going to put this guy on. Hey there. Hi. Hello. Yeah. Let's see. Yeah. I think I did not do a good job with the arm placement. I think they were a little bit different. I also need to kind of see how that's kind of like coming off. I'm going to go back and add a little bit more glue just to kind of make it a little bit nicer there. This is one where you kind of want a lot of glue just to make sure that it stays on. Yeah, I'm going to add a little bit more glue to this side and see how the arm's kind of coming off. I don't want that. Also, I didn't do a particularly good job of well, I didn't measure at all, but I didn't do it like they're a little bit off as far as different heights, but you know, that's okay. It'll work. Oh no, gotta be careful with the glue too. See how I got a little bit there? That's makes it a little bit messy. I'm gonna have this little glue thing on there, and it's really hard to get hot glue off the fabric once it gets there. So be careful with that. You don't want to make that mistake like I just did. And okay, I think that's a little bit better. Ooh, yeah, maybe a little bit more on this side up here to kind of get that nice and flat up against that, so his elbow is not, or his shoulder's not poking up. Again, like I said, I would normally sew this on. I'm just kind of doing some hot glue just to kind of quickly show you guys. But there he is. The only other thing that I might go back and do is if you have like little wooden sticks or something. If you want to be able to use the arms, here I just happen to have a straw right next to me, but then you can glue what we call the arm rods on so that you can make him wave and that sort of thing. I don't have any of those right around me right now, so I'm not going to do that right now. But here he is. So go ahead, make yourself a little puppet and show me what you got. Show me what you come up with. And so we have our puppet. Hello. How are you? Huh? What's going on? Hey, everybody. Ooh. Nice thing I like about these sock puppets is they got a lot of expression, even though they're real simple to make. They got a nice little movement. It's kind of bulging out there. I don't know how I feel about like my kind of thumbs making it bulge a little bit, but you know he's got a nice little movement. He's got nice. He can do a lot of like things like that, like ooh or scrunch up. Kermit the Frog does a lot of that kind of stuff. But yeah, hello. So that's our sock puppet. This is my little guy. I hope you enjoyed making a little sock puppet along with me. And if you don't have time or the materials to make something as complicated as this, do not worry, do not fear, don't stress, right? Even just a little sock. I mean, you know, just throw some eyes on it, whatever, some paper eyes, whatever. But here you go. And hold on to them because next week we are going to do a little performance. We'll talk a little bit about puppet performance. For those of you who have been in my class in 5th grade before, you've kind of gone through some of this stuff. But, you know, it's fun, and we'll just do a little refresher course on how to puppeteer and things like lip sync and eye focus, which that was not very good, but maybe walking on, puppet expressions, looking around. Things like that. So, yeah, stay tuned for that next week. Make sure you hold on to your little guy, bring him around, and we'll have some fun. Okay? Cool. So today, instead of doing a sing-along, we're going to do a dance-along. Okay? So you're going to dance with me. I picked this one. Some of you, I may or may not have taught it to you in previous years in performing arts class. It's my favorite little like silly line dance. I actually learned it at a camp that I used to work at, not Camp Uncommon, one I worked at before that. It's to a classic 90s song. Maybe 2000s, I don't remember. But it's super simple. It involves 3 parts, 3 moves. First move is easy move. It's just like a jog or a jump in place. Okay? Easy. And you do that a lot. There's going to be a lot of that in this. The next one is what I call the Matrix. If you've ever seen the Matrix, where Neo, he's like this shooting guns at him, he goes like this, and the bullets fly past his head. So we're going to do a Matrix move. So it's like this. And the more you can lean back, the better. Don't go too far, don't fall. And then the last move, this is the most complicated move. This is during the chorus of the song. And it goes like this. Okay, there are 2 parts. There's the arms, and then there's the legs. Okay? The arms go like this. Boom, 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 boom. And then boom, 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 boom. And as you do it, you're going to the side. So it's going to look like this. Ba-da, doo-doo, boom, boom. Ba-da, ba-ba, boom, boom. Ba-da, da-da, boom, boom. Ba-da, da-da, boom. I'm just moving this side to side. Boom, boom, da-da, da-da, boom. And that's the whole thing. Just this, or a jog. Well, I like a hop back and forth. Now this, and then this. Okay? Easy peasy lemon squeezy. So we're just going to jump right in. Here we go.
I still hear your voice when you sleep next to me.
So just like more like
I still feel
a little bit of the Matrix here. Okay, it's just getting swarmed up,
Forgive me my weakness, but I don't know why. Without you, it's hard.
Right back to a job. Back to a job. Maybe it's not stuff on my TV. Here we go. Let's go crazy. There we go.
Hey, Panthers! Here, I've always talked to you about Wally. If you want to meet him, he's right here. He's a little crazy. Oh, yeah, he's a little crazy. Oh, I miss you guys. I miss you guys so much. I wish I could see you every morning. I miss shaking your hands. I miss saying good morning. But you know what? I am sure that you're doing great work at home. And don't forget, deliverables are due at 11 a.m. on Thursdays. Miss you guys. Say bye, Wally. Bye.
So that about wraps it up for this week's edition of Pandemic PA. I figured if Miss Heppenman had her dog, I'd bring my cat to say goodbye. So thanks, guys, for joining in. Hope you guys built some great sock puppets with us. And hopefully after the break, we will get a chance to learn how to use them. Thanks, guys. Bye.